When my son-in-law noticed my long-desired travel trailer, he shouted, "You don't need that!" Tomorrow, they're off on vacation and plan to drop me off at a retirement home. His words knocked the wind out of me, but unknown to him, I had my own scheme. As soon as they hit the road, I fired off a text. "Check the glove compartment." When he finally did, he was stopped in his tracks, and that was just the start. I scribbled my name confidently at the end of the contract, a talent honed from over 3 decades in insurance sales. I had mastered reading every line in a policy, and this one checked out. Just a stone's throw away at the Phoenix dealership stood a gorgeous Winnebago Vista, its elegant cream and bronze finish gleaming in the sunlight, like windows whispering promises. I had withdrawn $45,000 from my retirement fund, every penny saved diligently. The salesman gave me a solid handshake as he handed over the keys, saying, "Congrats, Mr. Bishop. It's all yours." I walked to the trailer, alone, caressing its sleek fiberglass exterior. Inside smelled wonderfully new. I swung open the kitchen cabinet doors, tested the faucet, and sank into the driver's seat, gripping the wheel. My first stop would be the Grand Canyon, then Yellowstone, and hopefully Montana before the snow arrives. Over the years, I'd marked these spots on maps while clients discussed life insurance at my desk. Standing by the door, I reached for my phone. Betty needed to hear about this. She'd been pushing me for months to embrace retirement, to find hobbies and keep moving. But this was so much more than a hobby. It was pure freedom. My thumb hesitated over her photo, her cheerful face surrounded by her kids before I hit dial. "Dad," came Betty's voice, sounding flat and preoccupied. "Betty, honey, I went through with it. Bought myself a Winnebago Vista, top-notch condition. As I'm looking at it, I can envision the Grand Canyon, Yellowstone, even maybe a jaunt up to Montana." The line went quiet, not with awe, but calculation. "How much did you spend?" she finally questioned, overlooking my excitement to focus on the cost. No congratulations, no joy at the thought of my happiness. Just numbers. My heart sank a bit. $45,000. It's a smart investment, Betty, and I've been pinching pennies for... She interrupted, cutting off my explanation as if with a blade. "That's quite a sum. That money could have been spent more wisely." I stood in the dealership lot, feeling the keys heat up in my hand amidst the bustling scene, a family loading groceries, kids giggling nearby. "I thought you'd be happy. This has been my dream for ages." Her reply was curt. "I have to go. Zachary just came in. Let's talk later." And with that, the call ended before I managed a word. Staring at the phone, I saw our conversation had lasted just 2 minutes and 38 seconds. That's all the time my dream was worth. I hopped into the driver's seat, let the engine come to life, and soaked in the drive back, 40 minutes through the bustle of Scottsdale, pondering the meaning of more wisely. That evening I parked the trailer in my driveway, next to what had become my quiet, empty house. 3 bedrooms, 2 baths that were once bustling with life until cancer took my wife 4 years ago. I made a sandwich, took it to the trailer, and spread maps across the table. Route 66 memorabilia marked one path, while national parks dotted another. My fingers traced every road, yet Betty's voice echoed in my mind, a fixation on the expense over the happiness it promised. Twice I picked up my phone, only to set it back down. An apologetic follow-up never came, nor a text sharing in my excitement or attributing it to a bad moment. Nothing. The maps lay vivid under the lamp's glow, but my enthusiasm faded. Through the window, my house stood dim, with just one kitchen light on, contrasting the illuminated trailer. An old man alone, with what some might call a pricey blunder. Slowly, I folded the maps, my fingers lingering over the creases as I turned off the lamp. As I gazed outside, there it was. My house, still and untouched, just like it had been ever since I retired half a year ago. I had made a promise to myself that the next day would mark a new beginning. I was even thinking about a first big getaway, maybe to Sedona. The next day seemed like it would be another ordinary one, but I had no clue that things were about to change. I was taking my usual morning sip of coffee, though this time it had an unusually bitter kick. I couldn't quite tell if I had botched the coffee making or if yesterday's awkward conversation was still leaving a sour taste in my mouth. It was around 8:30, and the Arizona sun perfectly lit up the view from my kitchen window, casting a light on my trailer. It was indeed a beauty, even if my daughter thought it was just a money sink. While washing my coffee cup to put it on the dish rack, I heard a car pull up. Unusual, considering the mail truck wasn't due yet, and it didn't sound like a delivery van either. My curiosity piqued. I wandered over to the living room window. A black Lexus had parked by the sidewalk, and out came my son-in-law, Zachary. He closed his car door with a sense of urgency, making his way straight to my front door and not bothering with any courtesy calls or knocks. In this neighborhood, I hardly ever bothered with locking my front door, which is why Zachary waltzed right in like he owned the place. No chit-chat about how I was doing or even a good morning. Just my name, said flatly. He announced that they'd decided in one of their family chat sessions that they needed my trailer for a vacation they'd already laid plans for. I was still by the sink, clinging to a dish towel, trying to wrap my brain around it. So they talked it over, huh? And this all happened while I was dreaming over my maps yesterday. Stunned, I asked Zachary what he was going on about because I had just bought the trailer, for crying out loud. But he was unfazed, reaching over to the counter, grabbing the key ring that lay there near the coffee maker, and snagging the Winnebago key right off it. Yeah, Betty told me, he remarked nonchalantly. $45,000. That's a chunk for something you're barely gonna use. I clutched the towel tighter. Won't use it much? I had only had it a day. With my keys now in his possession, he gave me a look like I was making a big deal out of nothing. Come on, you don't need this, he said, suggesting they could drop me off at a senior home on their way out. His words felt like a punch to the gut, likening me to some needless excess, as if my hard-earned $45,000 was merely a gratis ride for their getaway. You can't just take my stuff, I objected. Those are my keys. But he was already moving towards the door, with arrogant confidence, and my keys clenched in his hand. We're family. We borrow things, he said on his way out, like that settled it. Thanks for understanding. We leave in the morning. Helpless and deflated, I watched him walk away. My hand involuntarily stayed outstretched toward something now out of reach. Him, the keys, or maybe just a little dignity. The Lexus rounded the corner, and then it was gone. I stood there for a while, then finally closed the door, locking it, which was something I rarely did. Inside, the silence pressed heavily around me as I thought about how Zachary had just barged in and taken what he felt entitled to. Now, yesterday's conversation with Betty made more sense. Her disapproval wasn't about the trailer itself. She was just calculating its value, deciding how they would utilize it. Her remark about smart spending was her way of saying how my money should really be used. I drifted to my bedroom, reaching into the top drawer where I kept documents, spare batteries, and old wristwatches. And there they were, a spare set of keys hanging on a small ring. The dealership had handed it to me as a backup, and I always knew that having a spare was wise. Years in the insurance game prepped me well. Always be prepared for loss. Holding the spare keys, I realized Zachary assumed they'd brushed me aside, thought this old guy would just drop his dreams. But my 3-decade career in insurance had taught me patience and how to read people. I'd learned not to leap to conclusions. At my desk, feeling the chill of the keys in hand, I glanced out at my trailer, proudly parked in the driveway, still filled with all my dreams and plans. Come morning, Zachary would expect it all packed up and ready to go, just assuming I'd fall in line, but I had different plans brewing. Picture this. I found myself sitting there, just waiting for him to show up again. Would he knock, or just stroll right in without a care? This time, though, I was ready to show him a thing or two about underestimating us seniors and what really happens in places like this. I grabbed my phone and went to my contact list. I had some calls to make. Sitting on my desk was a spare set of keys as I started rummaging through the file cabinet, pulling out document after document, insurance policies, house stuff, paperwork for the trailer, property deeds, investments, and even my will from 3 years back after my wife passed. Everything I had worked for or saved up, I originally meant to leave to Betty. There were papers sprawled all over the desk, and I was reading through them carefully. See, being an insurance agent, I'm used to thinking ahead. What if this happens or that happens? What's covered? What are the risks? But this time, it wasn't about figuring out premiums or liability limits. The real gamble was thinking my daughter and her husband could push me around with no consequences. I glanced at the clock on the nightstand, watching the hours tick away. First 2 a.m., then 4, then 6. Daybreak seeped in, all dull and gray through the window, and there I was, still brooding over it. I couldn't shake off how Betty sounded on the phone when she asked, "How much did you spend?" It wasn't shock in her voice. It was more like she was keeping tally. And Zachary? Waltzing into my place, taking my keys, talking about senior homes. None of it was just off the cuff. They'd been plotting, talking it over within the family. How long was this scheme brewing? By 7:30, I picked up my phone once more, scrolling until I found Margaret Sullivan, an attorney I had worked with on my estate plans after losing my wife. She was thorough, professional, and definitely not cheap. I called her. "Ms. Sullivan, this is Y. Bishop. I need to see you today to change my will. It's urgent." Her voice was calm, sounding every bit the lawyer. "Mr. Bishop, my schedule is absolutely full." "I'll pay twice your hourly rate. This cannot wait," I interrupted. After a short pause, she said, "I'll clear some time. 2 o'clock. See you then." I got myself ready, putting on the gray suit that had seen countless client meetings, with a crisp white shirt and a navy tie. If you're about to make a big decision, you might as well dress for it. Brewed some coffee, downed it at the kitchen counter, and hit the road for her Phoenix office around 1:15. The drive took about 40 minutes, and during it, I rehearsed my points, straight to the facts, no emotions. Her office was on the 3rd floor by the courthouse, all sleek glass desk and everything looking pristine and professional. She greeted me with a handshake and motioned for me to sit. "Your will currently leaves everything to your daughter, Betty. What's the new plan?" I didn't hesitate. "The Veterans Assistance Fund of Arizona gets everything. Betty gets only $1. Spell it out, exactly $1. She set her pen down, looking straight at me. "Mr. Bishop, this is a major decision. Are you completely sure?" "I've never been sure. How fast can we get this done?" She looked at me, as if searching for doubt or anger or sadness. But she wouldn't find any. I was past all that. "I can have the papers ready by this afternoon. You'll need a couple of witnesses to sign. May I ask what prompted this?" I stood up. "My family showed me who they really are, and I'm just responding appropriately." 3 hours later, I was back in her office. The document was ready, and 2 paralegals were standing by to serve as witnesses. I signed 3 times, once on the original, twice on the copies. My hand was steady. No second guessing, no regret. "I want all 3 copies," I told Margaret. She tucked them into a folder and handed it over. "The original stays with my office. These are for your records, Mr. Bishop. If you ever need anything else, just let me know." "Thanks for your assistance, Miss Sullivan," I said, heading back home with the folder safely on the passenger seat. My trailer was parked just where I left it, its cream and bronze exterior gleaming under the afternoon sun. I parked, strolled over to the trailer, keys in hand. The lock clicked open easily, and the door swung wide with a gentle thud. Inside, it still had that fresh, new smell. Zachary hadn't made off with it yet. He'd mentioned he'd pick it up tomorrow. I headed to the front, opened up the glove compartment, and slipped my will right on top. Not tucked away or hidden, just sitting there so anyone looking for insurance or registration papers would see it first. I stopped for a second, taking in the familiar interior. The tiny kitchen, the table usually covered with my maps. Maps were my thing, a dream I'd been nursing for over 35 years, and now they had twisted my dream into a complete joke. Let's see how this trip unfolds, I mumbled to no one in particular. Once I secured the trailer, I ambled back to the house. From the living room window, everything looked perfectly normal, papers neatly arranged, just waiting to catch the eye of someone searching for insurance or registration. I brewed some coffee, settled at the kitchen table, feeling the anticipation simmer in the air. Zachary had mentioned they'd be leaving in the morning. A quick look at the clock told me it could be any time now. Cradling my coffee, I kept an eye on the window. The neighborhood lazily awoke, garage doors creaking open, cars creeping onto the roads, everyone launching into their daily routines. Just another Tuesday for them. My world, though, got turned upside down as soon as Zachary darkened my doorstep the day before. At precisely 8:15, a black Lexus rolled up, with a silver SUV right behind. They both slid neatly into my driveway. Out popped Zachary, and Betty soon followed. Emma, at 10 years old, was the spitting image of her mom, while 7-year-old Lucas clutched his stuffed animal. My grandkids, faces I'd sent cards and gifts to every holiday. To them, I was hardly more than a stranger. As they began loading the trailer with travel gear, suitcases, coolers, beach chairs, even an inflatable raft, they worked with that unique efficiency that comes from a family prepping for a grand adventure. No one knocked on my door, not even a courtesy glance. To them, I might as well have been invisible. Zachary nabbed the keys from my counter, unlocked the trailer, and disappeared inside for a peek. Then, signaling the others, they started stuffing it with their luggage, taking over my space. Zachary turned towards my house and called out loud for everyone to hear. "Thanks for the trailer, Y. We'll make sure it's in good hands. Maybe even send you some postcards." Betty touched his arm, giving a nudge. "Zachary, just go." He chuckled. "What? He doesn't hear us. Must be sulking inside." Emma tugged at his shirt. "Dad, can we stop at the Grand Canyon?" Lucas bounced in place. "I want to see the ocean." Zachary crouched down, soaking up the moment. "We'll see it all, kiddos. 2 whole weeks of adventure coming up." One after another, they climbed back into the car. Zachary took the wheel, Betty beside him, and the kids in the back. The engine came to life, they reversed out, and within 12 minutes, they were gone, rounding the street corner. I stayed seated, my phone lying in front of me on the table. The clock ticked onwards, 8:27 now. They'd likely take the I-10 west, aimed toward California, probably passing Phoenix or Tucson. In 2 hours, they'd be far past Casa Grande, maybe nearing Gila Bend, making turning around quite the task. I sipped my coffee, tidied up, and often glanced at the clock. At 10:27, I reached for my phone, opened a message to Zachary, and typed, "Check the glove compartment." I hit send and set the phone back down. 3 minutes dragged by, then my phone erupted with a call from Zachary. I let it ring. Voicemail. Another try. Voicemail again. The screen stayed alight. Another call. This one from Betty. I let it ring once more. By 10:45, there were 63 missed calls from Zachary and 28 from Betty, littered with voicemails. I tapped one, only catching the beginning. "Why, what's in the glove compartment? Call me back." Delete. Another voicemail played, more frantic. What the hell is this? You can't do this. Call me right now. Delete. Betty's voice followed, shaky. Dad, please, we need to discuss this. Delete. I put the phone down, an idea forming in my head. Carefully, I crafted a message, ensuring each word counted. This is only the beginning. Send. The phone continued to vibrate on its face, the panic on their end almost tangible in my mind as I imagined Zachary pulling over on the interstate, Betty turning pale as she read the will, while the kids, clueless in the back, asked, "What's going on?" Why did we pause? Are we still going on our trip? I wondered aloud as I navigated into my home office. There, I opened the file cabinet and pulled out a folder I'd put together the evening before. It was all set with everything I needed. A duplicate of my will, documents for the trailer, receipts of purchase, and the original title signed by me. Solid evidence it was rightfully mine. That same morning, before my daily coffee ritual by the window, I made a discreet phone call. I rang up the non-emergency line at the Scottsdale Police Department at the crack of dawn, around 7:30. I kept calm and laid it all out clearly. I purchased a property, and some relatives took it without a word. I've got all the documents to back me up. They arranged for me to meet Officer Martinez the following morning at 9. They were ready for me. Back in the living room, I grabbed my phone. It showed a staggering 81 missed calls, so I powered it down and stashed it in the desk drawer. Let them scramble, let them sweat. Let them chew over, ignoring the old man. The same man they figured didn't have any business with a $45,000 trailer at his age. Soon enough, they'd see just what that old man was capable of when pushed against the wall. Lunch was simple. A turkey sandwich with a cold glass of water, slowly enjoyed at the kitchen table. Just the day before, Zachary had stood there, plucking my keys away with all his haughty assurance. The house was dead quiet. Outside, the void in the driveway where the trailer once sat was glaringly empty. But I didn't feel empty anymore. Instead, I was filled up with determination, with resolve, with a clear, unshakable vision of what I needed to do next. As the morning light crept in through my bedroom window, I was at my desk, shuffling through documents. There was the receipt from the dealership, $45,000, dated just 6 days prior, my signature scrawled at the bottom. The title named Y. Bishop as the sole proprietor, no shared ownership, no debts attached. I also had the registration, the insurance declaration, and even photos of the VIN plate inside the trailer. With everything snugly tucked into a manila folder, I peeked at my watch. 8:15. The police station was open. Dressed in my gray suit, the one I wore to Margaret Sullivan's office, I was prepared. If you want folks to take you seriously, you dress the part. 35 years in the insurance business taught me that appearance counts, almost as much as having the facts straight. A 12-minute drive brought me to the Scottsdale Police Department. The building was modern, with a tan stucco facade and the American flag flapping out front. I parked in the visitor area and headed through the glass doors into the cool, bright interior. A reception desk stood near some plastic chairs surrounded by posters about crime prevention. A uniformed officer looked up from his computer and asked, "What can I do for you, sir?" I approached the desk, placed my folder down, and maintained eye contact. "I'm here to report a stolen vehicle." His name tag read, Officer James Norton. He looked like he'd heard it all before. He grabbed a form, clicked his pen, and asked, "What kind of vehicle?" "A motorhome, a Winnebago Vista trailer," I told him. "Picked it up just 6 days ago for $45,000. My son-in-law took off with it yesterday without saying a word." A flicker of doubt crossed Norton's face, probably chalking this up as a family quarrel, not genuine theft. But I was ready for that line of thought. "Got any proof of ownership?" he inquired. I opened my folder and presented it to him. "Here's the purchase receipt from the dealership, the title in my name, the registration, and the insurance details." I've even got the VIN and where it is right now. Norton leaned in, examining each piece carefully. His attitude changed as genuine interest replaced his initial skepticism. "Where's it at the moment?" he asked. "It's traveling west on Interstate 10. He mentioned yesterday he was heading to California. Should be about 2 hours away now." He immediately began entering information into his computer. "Did you give him permission to use it?" he asked. "No, absolutely not." He swung by, grabbed the keys from my counter, and left, ignoring me completely. Thankfully, I had a spare key to fetch my papers before he drove off. Norton snapped pictures of the documents with his phone, logged the VIN, and took down Zachary's full name and description. He methodically asked questions, filled in the blanks on his screen, and used up about 20 minutes doing so. Once he finished, he looked at me with newfound respect. "Mr. Bishop," the officer said, glancing at the documents I gave him. "What you've shown me here points to an unauthorized vehicle use case. All right, let me lay it out for you. My car got nabbed, and it wasn't just some minor incident. We're talking a felony due to its value." The officer assured me he'd jump on it right away, filing the report and setting the highway patrol loose to hunt down the car and have a word with whoever's behind the wheel. They'd let them know the vehicle's officially marked as stolen and give them two options: return it to me or face a grand theft auto charge. I thanked the officer and thought, well, that's life. Follow the system and keep things tidy. My nephew Zachary seemed to have missed that memo or just didn't care. Back at home, I made a cup of joe and settled by the window. The empty spot where my car should have been parked didn't sting as much now since I knew it'd be occupied again soon. Sure enough, around noon, my phone buzzed. Officer Norton, with his no-nonsense voice, told me Highway Patrol had located the car roughly 70 miles west of Phoenix. They'd stopped the driver, given him the lowdown on the stolen car report, and he was heading back. I asked if they'd run into any snags. Norton said there was a bit of resistance. The driver spun a tale of some family misunderstanding. But when the officers pointed to the paperwork, showing it was my car and I reported it missing, reality sank in. I pictured the scene, police lights flashing and Zachary's jaw dropping when he realized this wasn't a bluff. Betty was likely in the passenger seat, in tears, and the kids in the back sat puzzled, not grasping the sudden halt. I thanked Officer Norton, and he mentioned the car should be back in 2 hours, asking if I wanted cops around for the handover. I shook it off, saying, "Nope, just want my car returned." I checked the clock, 2 hours to go, refilled my coffee mug, and returned to my post by the window. The sun was blazing in typical Arizona fashion. It's that intense heat, where people often say, "Yeah, but it's a dry heat," as if that makes a difference when the mercury hits 110 degrees. I imagined Zachary's face when he realized this wasn't just a cheap threat, but actual consequences catching up to him. It's a lesson in what happens when you snatch something costly and assume family ties mean a free pass. My coffee had gone cold by the time I saw the trailer pulling onto my street, right on schedule. Betty followed close behind in Zachary's Lexus. The trailer rocked into the driveway as Zachary braked too hard, turned off the engine, and just sat there for a bit. Eventually, he got out, face flushed, maybe from the sun or sheer rage. I wasn't sure. Probably both. He slammed the trailer door hard enough for me to hear it inside. Betty got out more slowly, looking upset and tear-streaked. The kids were plastered against the backseat windows, trying to soak it all in. I stood up, walked out to the porch, not about to go down there. This was my car, my space, my rules. Zachary came over, stopping just short enough to hurl accusations, but not close enough for things to turn physical. He started shouting about me embarrassing them with cops, making them seem like crooks in front of the kids. Who does that to their own family? I stayed composed, responding coolly. The kind whose car was taken without a word. Zachary was taken aback, arguing, "We're family. You don't do this to family." I shot back. Well, borrowing without asking is stealing. He didn't like that, and I saw his fists ball up like he might want to throw a punch. Part of me was ready. It'd only dig his hole deeper. He called me out for changing my will, threatening they'd fight it, saying I'd lost it to think this was okay. That's when Betty chimed in, tears on full display, pleading, "Dad, the kids are scared and confused. Why wreck our trip?" I looked her in the eye. "Wrecked us, or just you, Betty?" She flinched. "I'm your daughter. How could you?" I reminded her about the family talks we'd had and how she'd spilled everything to Zachary. So then he just took it from me. So, Betty, that's my way of dealing with folks who pull stunts like that. He's my husband, he messed up. Can't you let it slide this one time? Think about your grandkids. The grandkids? Of course, she'd pull that card. Zachary stepped right up, voice low but sharp enough to cut. "This isn't over. You'll hear from our lawyer soon. We'll be filing papers tomorrow. Clearly, you're not fit to look after your own affairs." I extended my hand, palm up, waiting. He gave me a puzzled look. "The keys," I said. His jaw tightened. He probably wanted to say no or chuck them on the ground, but today he learned that saying no had consequences. Reluctantly, he yanked out the keyring from his pocket and handed it over. They were warm from being held so long. I held on to them and turned to go inside. Betty kept crying behind me, and Zachary sounded like a snorting bull with his huffing and puffing. The kids just stared blankly out the car windows. Entering the house, I locked the door with a click that felt strangely satisfying. Peeking out the window, I saw them linger a moment longer before Zachary gently pulled Betty to their Lexus, and off they drove. That trailer in my driveway, no longer a symbol of dreams, but something else entirely now. In the kitchen, I dumped the cold coffee down the sink. Tomorrow, they'd push forward with their motions. Tomorrow, the new chapter would unfold. But tonight, there were calls I needed to make. The letter showed up next morning, right at 9:30. Sitting on my back patio with a coffee mug, the doorbell rang. A courier in uniform asked me to sign for a delivery. It was a large legal envelope, with a law office's name neatly stamped on the corner, Whitman and Associates, attorneys at law. I scribbled my signature on his electronic pad, shut the door, and tore open the envelope in the kitchen. The paper was heavy, felt pricey, and the language was stiff. Petition for a determination of incapacity. Claims addressing Y. Bishop, age 63, allegedly not mentally capable of managing financial affairs. Accusations of recent erratic behavior, such as distancing from family, impulsive purchases, pressing charges against kin, calling for a court-ordered mental evaluation. I read through it slowly, twice. They didn't miss a beat. Lawyer contacted last night, papers filed first thing today. Zachary was nothing if not swift. Every action I took got a knee-jerk reaction, a little too predictable, bordering on mundane. I set the petition on the counter and grabbed my phone, dialing a contact I saved 3 days ago before this storm kicked up. Margaret Sullivan's direct line. She answered on the second ring. "Miss Sullivan, it's Y. Bishop. I need to meet today. They've filed an incompetency petition." There was a pause. "All right, I'll shuffle things around. Can you be here by 2:00?" she asked. "I'll be there by 1:30, I assured her. The morning was spent gathering documents. Bank statements showing steady money management, investment portfolios with a sensible mix for my age and risk, tax returns punctual over 35 years, glowing insurance career reviews, plus character references from old co-workers and health records from a checkup 2 months ago. Blood pressure, normal, cholesterol, managed, cognitive tests, excellent. By 1, I had 3 folders ready. Proof of capability, good judgment, a lifetime marked by thoughtful decisions. Just because I bought the trailer impulsively using my funds didn't erase that history. Margaret Sullivan's office felt colder than I remembered, or maybe I was just beat. She gestured for me to sit across from her desk and started flipping through the petition while I sat quietly. Her face gave nothing away. "You've really taken a big step here," she finally said. "Most times, incompetency petitions are based on actual mental decline, backed up with medical evidence and family reports showing confusion or dangerous behavior." She pointed at the document and added, "This seems more like payback." "Do they have a shot at winning?" I asked. "Do you want the legal take or the real-world one?" she shot back. "Both," I replied. "In legal terms, they've got to prove you can't manage your affairs. With your records, medical proof, and the obvious payback nature of this filing, it's unlikely they'll win. As for reality, it'll cost a bundle, take a long time, and be really draining mentally, which might be exactly what they want. So, what's happening here is that they're giving you grief because you didn't give them what they wanted. I already knew that much. So, what's our play? We fight back. We hit them with a countermotion. We showcase your medical history, financial standing, and character references. We argue that this petition is just a sham, filed to harass you." She leaned in closer and said, "We go on the offensive. We file for a restraining order to keep them far from your property and stop any more harassment. We gather proof of their intrusion and make it cost them more effort and money than it costs you." She started jotting notes on her notepad. "I need you to share your medical records, financial documents, and let me contact character witnesses, old colleagues, neighbors, anyone who can vouch for your reliability and character." I passed 3 folders her way, all organized and ready. She opened the first one and went through bank statements, investment accounts, tax records. She gave a slight smile. "You're making my job too easy, Mr. Bishop. After 35 years in the insurance business, I know how to handle documentation. But this goes beyond just claims." She shut the folder, met my eyes, and said, "This is about making a rock-solid case so they can't touch your assets, ever. Are you ready for that?" "I'm defending what I've worked for," I replied. "You're also cutting off your daughter completely," she went on. "Once we file that restraining order and argue that they're after your money, there's no turning back." I thought of Betty's tear-streaked face a few days ago, accusations flying, using her kids as a trump card, never once admitting what Zachary did, never standing up for me or checking if I was okay. "Go ahead and file," I said. They set the hearing for 3 weeks from then. Margaret told me it was standard procedure. Both sides would present their arguments, a court-appointed psychologist would assess me, and then the judge would decide. Margaret guessed they'd try to settle before it came to that. Once they saw the evidence we have and realized things weren't looking good for them, they'd likely offer to drop their claim if I just let them back into my will. And if they make that offer, what's the answer? "Just say no," I said, as I collected my folders. The next couple of weeks dragged on. I kept to my routine: grocery trips, workouts, lunches with a few colleagues who agreed to be character witnesses. I was living like any capable, put-together person would. Betty tried reaching out 4 times, but I never answered. Her voicemails varied. The first was all anger, blaming me for tearing the family apart with a restraining order. The second pleaded for forgiveness to just let bygones be bygones. The third was desperate, insisting Zachary didn't mean it and how sorry they all were. The last one was just sobs, followed by silence. I saved every single one. More evidence. Zachary shot me a message with "final offer" in the subject. I skimmed it, standing at my kitchen counter. Basically, they'd leave me alone if I put them back in my will and handed over the trailer. Otherwise, they promised a long, drawn-out court battle. I forwarded it straight to Margaret Sullivan with no response. She hit me back within an hour. "Great. He's essentially documented his own blackmail attempt. Keep this one on file." So, The psych evaluation was scheduled for a Wednesday. Dr. Patricia Chen, who was appointed by the court, met up with me in downtown Scottsdale. She spent about an hour and a half grilling me with questions, asked about my medical history, my work, how things were going with Betty, the story behind the trailer, changing the will, and why I dialed 911. I kept it all real, sticking to the truth without any dramatic flair. She threw some brain teasers and puzzles my way. No sweat, I handled them easy. As we were wrapping up, she put down her notes and stared me right in the eyes. "Mr. Bishop," she said, "do you understand why your daughter wanted to push this whole thing?" "She's after my money," I shot back. "That's a pretty basic way to put it," she replied, with a bit of a grin. "But accurate," I insisted. As we finished up, she said, "I'll have my report ready for the court by Friday. Can't share my thoughts yet, but I'll say this much. There's no evidence you're unable to take care of your affairs. This is family drama, not you being incapable." I thanked her and left. The hearing was scheduled for March 11th. Come Friday night, just 3 days to go before Monday, Margaret called. She had some updates. Apparently, Dr. Chen's report was in our favor. It supported my full competency, highlighted the revenge element in the petition, and suggested it be tossed out straight away. Then Whitman buzzed me about an hour later. They were looking to settle. What's their deal? They'd drop the petition if I canceled the restraining order and thought about adding them back to my will. Not happening. Figured that. They're going ahead with the hearing on Monday then. Well, let them. They're gonna lose hard. The judge will see it for the nonsense it is. Pure harassment. You'll walk away winning. I agree. Then why do you sound disappointed? I glanced out my kitchen window at the trailer parked in my driveway. It's been there for 3 weeks, ever since things turned upside down. Because winning shouldn't feel this empty. Monday came around, gloomy and gray, a weird sight for August. I got into my suit and headed down to the courthouse, meeting Margaret in the hallway outside the courtroom. Betty and Zachary were hanging out at the other end, and they had a new lawyer. Looks like Whitman skipped town. Their new guy was young and looked pretty tense. The hearing lasted about 40 minutes. Margaret threw down Dr. Chen's report, my medical documents, my financial info, and some testimonials from character witnesses. Their lawyer tried to argue I was emotionally unstable and used my will change to suggest I couldn't make sound decisions. But Judge Catherine Rhodes, who's all business and around her mid-50s, cut him off. "Counselor, changing a will isn't a sign of incompetence. It's a sign of independence. Do you have medical evidence of cognitive decline?" "Your Honor, the defendant's recent behavior—" "You mean the actions backed by proper paperwork, legal advice, and getting law enforcement involved after a theft? Sounds like smart decision-making, not a mind in decline." Case dismissed. The gavel came down sharply, and just like that, it was over. Betty froze, and Zachary's face went from pale to bright red. Their lawyer quickly packed up, keeping his eyes on the floor. Margaret and I left together. I didn't look back once. On the courthouse steps, she turned to me. "The restraining order still stands. They can't come near you without risking breaking it. The will change is solid. Your competency is officially recognized. You scored a win on all counts." "Yep. But you don't look too happy about it." I watched the cars pass by, folks caught up in their usual Monday routines. Because winning isn't what I was after. I never wanted to end up in this mess. She gave my arm a quick, professional squeeze. "I'll send you my final bill. Let me know if anything comes up." I drove home alone, the trailer still sitting there like always, untouched since I'd dropped the will in its glove box weeks ago. No travel plans made, no maps spread out. I unlocked it and stepped into the stale air inside. Opened the windows to let in the August heat. My phone buzzed with a message from a number I didn't recognize. "You tore your family apart for money. Was it worth it?" I deleted it and blocked the number. Then, I sat at the little table in the trailer and unfolded the maps I'd tucked away weeks back. The Grand Canyon, Yellowstone, Montana, all the spots I dreamed about visiting. I traced paths with my finger, but any sense of excitement had vanished. Just paper with road lines now. I folded the maps again and set them aside. Tomorrow, I would call the dealer and find out what they'd offer for a trailer that's barely used. Only 3 weeks old with 800 miles on it. Let someone else chase after that dream. Mine fell apart the moment Zachary knocked on my door. Sure, the court gave me justice, but it didn't return what I had lost. I secured the trailer, headed back inside, poured a glass of water, and sat alone at the kitchen table. I called Margaret Sullivan before even finishing my morning coffee. The competency petition was staring at me from the kitchen counter, the legal paper shimmering in the morning light. She picked up on the first ring. "Why, I have a courtesy copy of the petition. They're saying diminished capacity because of your erratic behavior, meaning they'll change that police report. So, how strong is their case? Without any real evidence, it's pretty weak. But these things can drag on. All right, here's the situation. You want to stay ahead of this, right? So here's my advice. Get 2 full medical checkups, one with a general doctor and another with a neurologist, before any court-ordered evaluation comes up. You need to have proof of your mental acuity ready to go. So here's what you do. Schedule with 2 doctors, 1 general practitioner, 1 neurologist. You want them each to conduct full cognitive and neuro exams, things they can't dispute. I set up the appointments right away. Dr. Patricia Hendris on Wednesday and Dr. Robert Chen on Friday. Cover all your bases. Dr. Hendris operates out of a modern office in North Scottsdale. Think sleek building, surrounded by desert plants. She was thorough. Went over my medical history, checked my meds, blood pressure, cholesterol, all good. Asked about my family's history, daily activities, exercise routines, the usual. Then we got into the cognitive stuff. She said, "Mr. Bishop, remember these 3 words for later. Apple, table, penny. Can you repeat them?" So I did. Apple, table, penny. Then she had me count backward from 100 by 7s, name the current president, recall what I had for breakfast, and even draw a clock showing 3:15. To test my awareness, she asked about current events, so I chatted about a hurricane in Florida, an economic report, and a Supreme Court ruling I read. After some time, she asked, "Now what were those 3 words again?" I nailed it. Apple, table, penny. She scribbled notes, smiled a bit, and said, "Your cognitive functions are spot on, Mr. Bishop. Memory, attention, reasoning, all excellent. Better than average for your age." Then Dr. Chen's session was more technical. Reflexes, coordination, spatial reasoning. He had me do the heel-to-toe walk, touch my nose with alternating fingers, and pick patterns from visuals. He asked if I liked puzzles, to which I said I dabble in crosswords. "Your reaction time and processing speed are impressive," he noted. "Apparently sifting through insurance policies for over 35 years keeps the mind sharp." Both doctors handed me detailed reports on official letterheads. Full cognitive evaluations, neuro exams, everything cleared. No signs of dementia or cognitive decline. My decision-making skills? Rock solid. I took those reports to Margaret's office the following Tuesday. She reviewed them, looked pleased. These will make it tough for them to argue incompetency. She filed the reports, then skimmed through older documents, pausing at one page. "Hey, do you recall signing this?" She held up a deed. 3 years ago, I had transferred ownership of my house to Betty. Back then, it was valued at $340,000, probably $380,000 now. I looked at the paper, my signature beside Betty's, signed it 3 years back, after my wife passed. I wanted Betty to feel secure, to have something reliable. Margaret placed the deed back on the desk between us. This is a revocable gift deed. You can take it back. Those words hit hard. Take it back? Under what circumstances? I inquired. She explained Arizona law allows revocation if the grantee shows significant ingratitude. Considering her actions, taking your property, claiming you're incompetent, and mentioning a nursing home, I'd say we have grounds for a case. I took another good look at the deeds I had in front of me. You know, that house my wife and I called home for over 20 years? It's where we watched Betty grow up. And that same house? Well, Zachary just strolled in, swiped my keys, and started with the talk about senior living homes. The funny part? Betty doesn't even realize she's technically the owner now. She still thinks it's my place, something she's going to inherit one day. So, if we pull back on this, Margaret told me, it turns into a learning opportunity. I leaned back and pondered over that gift deed we talked about. I had signed it out of love, mixed with the grief I was feeling, thinking I was doing something good. But now, I'm seriously considering pulling back, with good reason. So, what else is in my file? I asked Margaret in a softer tone. She flipped open another folder and showed me some life insurance policies. 3 of them, to be exact. Total payout, $250,000, and Betty was the lucky beneficiary on every single one. We exchanged glances over the desk, with that slightly worn deed sitting between us, my signature as clear as it was the day I signed it. I really thought signing those papers would guarantee her a secure future, ensuring she'd be cared for when I couldn't. But now, it felt like what I had meant as kindness was turning into a trap. Margaret picked up a legal pad, clicked open her pen, and said, "To cancel this gift, we need solid proof of ingratitude." She started noting down everything: the trailer incident, the police involvement, that frustrated call for incompetency. They all needed to be documented. The discussion veered towards other assets. And the life insurance? Pensions? Who's got their name on those? She asked, looking at me. I felt my inner resolve harden as I replied, "Betty. She's on everything." She scribbled that down and nodded. "Not for long," she muttered. For the next hour, she drafted all the necessary paperwork, her fingers flying across the keyboard, occasionally stopping to check Arizona law books that were heaped on her desk. As she typed, I filled her in on more details. We laid out 4 clear instances of ingratitude, taking $45,000 worth of property without asking, involving the police, which had embarrassed me publicly, hurling a hurtful comment at the nursing home, and wrongfully filing for incompetency despite clear medical facts. She looked up after going through her notes. "Wayne, this is a strong case. Any judge will see reason to revoke," she told me confidently. She handed me a printout full of legal terms, citing local laws, and detailing each incident meticulously. I read out loud, "Property at 2847 Desert Willow Drive, valued at $380,000. This needed to be sent with a return receipt, with the necessary legal rights to contest laid out, though Margaret was sure Betty wouldn't have a leg to stand on." Then she picked up 3 more papers, all about changing beneficiaries on the insurance policies. 3 companies, 3 policies I'd been keeping up with for 28 years, total benefits of $250,000. Betty's name was still listed on all of them. "We'll redirect those to the Veterans Assistance Fund like your will," she reminded me. As I went through each piece of paperwork, my insurance background made me extra careful with the fine print. They all needed my signature, the date, and the new beneficiary details. Signing each one felt conclusive and permanent. Margaret reassured me that Betty would be informed of the changes by the insurance companies. "She'll know exactly what's changed," she said. Soon enough, Margaret's assistant gathered the papers to get everything ready for official mailing, marked with tracking, ensuring we had evidence for every step. Just before sealing the envelope revoking the deed, Margaret hesitated. "Are you sure this is the path you want, Wayne? Once these are sent, It's hard to go back. It's going to affect your relationship with Betty." I replied calmly but firmly. That relationship was over when she did nothing while her husband helped himself to my things. These letters just make it official. And with that, Margaret sealed the envelope. By the time Tuesday rolled around, letters had been sent out, and by Thursday, my phone was blowing up. Betty had called 15 times, Zachary had phoned a couple of times, and the voicemail box was filled to the brim. I found myself in Margaret's office again when her phone rang. She glanced at the caller ID before hitting the speaker button. "Margaret Sullivan here, representing Mr. Bishop. No negotiations will be happening. The revocation and changes to beneficiaries are legally justified," she stated, explaining it was due to documented proof of gross ingratitude. "Mr. Bishop isn't accepting calls," she finished, and hung up. Shaking her head, she looked at me and said, "They're losing it." I looked at my phone too, going through all the voicemails. I played one for Margaret as I turned the speaker on. Zachary's voice erupted, full of anger and threats. "You're screwing up, old man. Think you can just take back the house? We'll make sure you're tied up in court till you're done for. We're still moving forward with that incompetency hearing." It was all a lot of tense talk, clearly showing their panic. "Wait, stop there," Margaret instructed me, jotting down notes. "Let's categorize this as evidence. It's a clear-cut case of threatening an elderly family member. This boosts our position significantly." Betty's messages, in contrast, were filled with desperation, not threats. Her initial 3 messages were mostly sobs and barely made any real sense. By the 4th message, things started taking shape. "Dad, please, I need to talk to you. Just me, not Zachary. Please, I'm coming by tomorrow morning. Be home, okay?" The timestamp showed it was sent barely 20 minutes earlier. With Friday on the horizon, I walked out of Margaret's office carrying all the documents: the notice of revocation, alterations in insurance beneficiaries, and a printout of Zachary's threatening voicemail. The Arizona sun was as unforgiving as ever when I stepped into the parking lot, almost making September in Phoenix feel like a punishment. I sat in my car for a moment without even starting it, my eyes drawn to my phone. 17 missed calls in total. Nearly all were from Betty. What could she even say? That she was sorry? That Zachary pressured her into it? That she had no choice? Everyone makes their own decisions, and she made hers. Still, curiosity got the better of me. I listened to her latest voicemail again, the one where she insisted it was just her, without Zachary. That was something different. Finally, I started the car and headed home, mulling over what she might say and how I'd react. Perhaps with nothing. There really wasn't much left to talk about. But I'd be there the next morning, and if she had anything to say, I'd hear her out, just once. When I pulled into the driveway, my phone buzzed with a new text. "Dad, I'm sorry. I mean it. Please, let me explain tomorrow. Just give me 30 minutes, please." I read the message twice, then powered down the phone and went inside. The house was quiet, empty. For the past 3 weeks, the trailer outside had gone unused, the time since everything had fallen apart. Dinner was a solitary affair, some grilled chicken, salad, and rice. I ate alone at the kitchen table, then cleared the dishes, washing and drying them. Tomorrow would bring Betty, looking for a chance to apologize, explain, or maybe plead. None of it would change a thing. The legal stuff was handled, papers filed, certified mail sent, the gift deed revoked, beneficiaries on the insurance altered. It was all final and officially documented. I turned in early, though sleep was elusive, my mind swirling with thoughts of those signatures on gift deeds from 3 years past, thinking about protection, betrayal, and what separates being a father from being just an insurance policy. I kept my phone off. Let her wonder if I'd even seen the message. Let her stew over whether or not I'd be there. But I would be. I'd listen, she'd speak, and then she'd go, and that would be the end. When Friday morning arrived, I was at the kitchen window as Betty's car pulled up at 9:30 sharp. She was alone, no Zachary. That definitely meant something. I opened the door before she had the chance to knock. Her eyes were puffy from crying, mascara smeared. Her hands trembled as she stood on my doorstep. "Dad, please, can we just talk? Just the two of us?" I stepped aside, gesturing for her to come into the living room. "You wanted to chat, and here I am, ready to listen." She settled on the edge of the old couch, the very same one from when we were just kids. It's held so many memories. Birthdays, Christmas mornings, those movie nights when we were 10. All those moments linger in the air like family ghosts. This isn't what I wanted, any of it. Not the trailer, not the cops or the court fights. It was never my plan. I was sitting across from her in a chair. Being beside her wasn't an option, as there had to be a bit of distance between us. "What did you really want, Betty?" Her voice wobbled a bit. "It was Zachary," she confessed. "He was the one who wanted all of this. The trailer was his thing. The petition to declare incompetency, that was his doing too. I just went along because, well, he's my husband. I didn't know how to stop it all." I said, "You didn't stand up to him, but you also just stood by when he humiliated me." She sat there, eyes on her hands, twisting her wedding ring around. "I'm sorry," she said quietly. "For what, exactly?" "For everything. For not standing up against him. For letting it go this far," she replied. Leaning forward, I hit her with the question that had been bugging me ever since the keys were taken and the idea of a nursing home was put out there like it was nothing. "You were there. Why didn't you stand up for me?" The silence was thick, hanging in the room. She looked down, not brave enough to meet my eyes. Time ticked by painfully slow, 30, 45 seconds. I don't know. I should have. I'm really sorry. You know what's really going on. You put him first, even though you won't say it out loud." Her tears started flowing harder now. "I honestly love you, Dad. I do. But I live with my husband. That's just the way it is. Are you saying I have to choose? Well, it looks like you already did, picking him over me again and again. It's not that easy, Dad. But really, it is as simple as that." I stood up and walked to the window, peering out at that trailer in my driveway. I made up my mind to stop everything. The gift deed nullification, changing the insurance policies, all of it. The house is yours, back in your name. The will stays as it was. But there's one condition. She looked hopeful, just for a moment. "Anything," she said. "Just name it." I told her to file for divorce, cut Zachary out completely. Put your father before your husband, just like you chose him over me before. Her expression moved from shock to getting it, then to anger. "You can't ask me to do that. That's manipulation. It's like blackmail." I turned away from the window, looked her in the eyes. "No, Betty. Blackmail would be trying to get what I don't deserve through threats. I have a right to respect from my daughter. I'm giving you an option now, the same one I had when you said nothing while he walked all over me. You made your choice then. Now it's time to decide again." She stood, grabbing her purse angrily. "You're becoming so cold-hearted." "No, I'm just being fair. There's a difference." She went to the door, hand lingering on the knob. "You'll die old and bitter this way, you know. Maybe, maybe not. But at least no one, not even family, will use me as a doormat ever again." The door clicked softly as it shut behind her. I watched her sit in her car, crying for a good 5 minutes. She finally started the engine and drove off. I figured I might feel something, like satisfaction or justice, anything. But all I felt was old and tired. The house was eerily quiet. Evening shadows crept in. Then my phone buzzed with a voicemail. Zachary's voice on the other end was hot with anger. You lousy jerk for telling her to divorce me. What kind of father are you? You'll pay for this. We'll take you to every court in Arizona. We'll make sure everyone knows you're nothing but a manipulative, venomous old pest. This fight isn't done, not by a long stretch. I played the message again, on speaker this time, and forwarded it to Margaret with a simple note. More evidence. She got back to me quick. Perfect. This will be great if things get messy. Ready to move forward with the house sale? I scanned the living room. Not long ago, Betty was here, crying on that very couch. We used to have family meals here, celebrate birthdays, enjoy movies when she was just a kid. This house is full of years and years of memories. But memories aren't worth more than betrayal. I replied to Margaret, yes, let's list it as soon as possible. I'm ready for the next chapter. Putting my phone aside, I walked to my little home office, pulling open a drawer holding a file with real estate listings. I had always thought about checking out Sedona. It seemed like a perfect place to start fresh, far enough from Phoenix. I spread out the papers on my desk. One caught my eye, a cozy 2-bedroom with mountain views, listed at $220,000. I circled it with my pen. Time to look forward and stop dwelling on what's behind. Margaret and I got together that Monday morning to officially cancel the gift deed. The papers were right there, stamped and all set to go. This is it, Y, she said. Once I file this with the county, your house is all yours again. Are you ready? I scribbled my name at the bottom. I've been ready since I figured out what was going on, I replied. This just makes it official. She signed as a witness and sealed it with her notary stamp. For what it's worth, I think you handled this with incredible calmness. Others could have been downright bitter. I'm not trying to wreck them, I said. I just want to defend what's mine. She got those papers filed later that day. By Wednesday, the house was back in my name, 3 years after I had given it to Betty out of love, only to take it back because of her deceit. On Thursday morning, my real estate guy, David Torres, put a for sale sign in my yard. I watched from the window as he hammered it into the ground. The place where I'd spent 23 years was just another transaction now. The listing went live on Friday. By the weekend, there were plenty of people checking it out. By Monday, David called me up with 3 offers. Mr. Bishop, all cash offers, all trying to close fast. The top one is $392,000, closing in a couple of weeks. Take it, I said. I don't need anything else. All right, ready to wrap this up? He asked. You sure about it? We could wait and maybe get what we hoped for. Nope, I'm sure. Let's take the offer. While the sale was in motion, I took a trip to Sedona. A spot I had my eye on earlier was still available. A 2-bedroom with a great mountain view going for $220,000. I walked through the empty rooms and stood on the back patio, the red rocks standing tall in the distance. The realtor was chatting about square footage and renovations, but I hardly heard her. This was it, just what I need. 2 bedrooms, one for me and one for a home office. A kitchen with a mountain view. No nosy neighbors, no memories sticking around. Just space to breathe. I paid in cash and signed the papers right then and there. Later that afternoon, Margaret called with some news. Betty and Zachary's lawyer had reached out again, eager to chat about settlement ideas. I let them know there was nothing left to discuss. Everything was handled cleanly. The incompetency hearing was dismissed. The judge reviewed your medical records and saw no reason to proceed. And what was his response? He asked if you'd be willing to meet Betty one last time, she said. I told him I'd check, but I was sure about your answer. Oh, were you? I chuckled. The Phoenix house deal closed 2 weeks later. I dropped by the title office, signed the remaining papers, and left with a cashier's check for $392,000. Adding that to my savings, I had enough to live life comfortably on my terms. I spent the following week packing. The trailer, which had been a source of so much hassle, was finally being put to good use. Clothes, maps, camping gear, travel books, all neatly packed. Years of experience as an insurance agent made sure everything was in order, nothing forgotten. The morning I took off, I chose a new path, heading north instead of the usual south, from Phoenix to Flagstaff, then west to the Grand Canyon. This trip had been planned months ago, back when I bought the trailer before Betty's call had dimmed my excitement. Now it was time to reclaim it. I parked at a scenic overlook, stepped into the brisk September morning air. The canyon lay before me, vast and timeless, indifferent to the trivial matters of people. I stood with my trailer, soaking in the sight, and snapped a picture with my phone. Me, with the Winnebago vista, the Grand Canyon stretched out behind me. I captioned it. Guess I needed this more than I thought. Sent it off to Betty. Then I flipped my phone to airplane mode and climbed back into the trailer. I didn't wait around for her reply. Whatever she felt, angry or regretful, didn't concern me anymore. She made her choices, and I made mine. The road stretched west from the canyon, open and boundless. No deadlines, no schedule demanding my attention. Monument Valley tomorrow, maybe. Next week, perhaps Arches National Park. If the weather held, perhaps Yellowstone eventually. Right before I set off, Margaret sent me one last email. She told me all the court issues were wrapped up. The incompetency case, dismissed. And the gift deed revocation, officially on the record. I was in the clear. Being in the clear felt great. The trailer was gliding down the road, steady and dependable. I had been worried it might be a bit unwieldy, too big, but it handled perfectly, like it was part of me and all my plans. The miles kept rolling under the wheels. Phoenix was fading into the distance behind me. Sedona was about 4 hours away, waiting for whenever I felt like heading back to my new home. A fresh chapter. But not just yet. I had some places to visit first. This trip had been a long time coming, a retirement planned, a dream saved for, the adventure I'd earned. It was finally happening, all on my own terms. Just me and my trailer, not lonely at all. Betty and Zachary thought they could take this away from me, thinking I wouldn't put up a fight. They assumed being family meant they had a free pass. Well, they learned differently. Not because I was spiteful, but because I was ready, documented everything, and wasn't about to mix love and letting them take what's mine. The road wound through the desert, surrounded by red rocks and blue skies. I kept going west, then north, then wherever I felt like turning, with no one waiting, no expectations, just pure freedom. Just me, the open road, and the liberty to go where I wanted. I'd spent 63 years being careful, dependable, the go-to person. Now, I was leaning into something else, not reckless or careless, just free. As the sun moved across the sky and the miles went by, I knew there was more waiting somewhere around the next turn, or the one after. It hit me that my real retirement was still ahead. It wasn't the one I lost when Zachary came into my life, nor the one I fought so hard to reclaim.